In the beginning, broadcasting was radio. More powerful still came a second age, television. For 50 years, these two forces were licensed by governments and accountable to national publics. Now, the world is entering a new age of broadcasting, a third age, television delivered by satellite signal, crossing national boundaries and accountable to no one. It all began in America 15 years ago. Television there proved very profitable, but this led to more and more channels. The result? Numerous private channels delivered via satellite and cable. In New York, there are now 35.
That's a local broadcast channel, as is that, as is this one. This is a Spanish language channel. This is a local broadcast channel, Channel 7. This is a Spanish language channel, local broadcast, including 3 hours a night of Chinese language programming. This is Cable News Network, which is a 24-hour-a-day live news program. This is HBO, 24-hour-a-day magazine.
When people speak of the revolution in television today, they usually think it's the revolution in technology, but in fact it's the revolution in deregulation. Deregulation is a revolution. It's taking away, stripping away accountability that had always been there before. For 50 years, broadcasters lived with a sense of accountability and a public interest standard, and the idea that they were trustees of the public.
Given a 24-hour channel, how on earth do you fill it? The cheap way is to give the public access.
Do we have another one on line 4? Hi there.
Hi. I want to say first that I love your show.
How nice of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, my date of birth is July 8th.
In a studio no bigger than a small office, rented for $45 an hour, an astrologer fulfills your every need.
That was in Hartford, Connecticut.
Oh, okay. I have... okay, you ask your question first.
Okay. I'd like to know if I'm going to be getting an apartment in the next couple of months that I've been hoping I would get.
Well, let me say this. I'm not 100% sure.
We do 12,000 hours a year of locally produced programming by people who live in New York City. That's 1,000 hours a month. We have no control over the content of the programming, nor any responsibility for it, and our only responsibilities are for minimum technical standards of a very unsophisticated nature, so that the door is wide open for anybody who wants to put virtually anything on the air.
Okay, I'd like a job as an engineer building garbage and sanitation trucks.
You want to build garbage and sanitation trucks?
Yeah.
This is New York's answer to unemployment, a job spot phone-in for phone freaks.
Hey, your sign's falling, man. Yeah, well, we had this sign built by one of those clowns that was in here before looking for a job.
Big, rich, and glossy, HBO is America's most successful commercial channel. Home box office provides 24 hours of feature films. But with only 150 new films coming out of Hollywood each year, it's proving difficult to fill airtime. These single-theme channels class themselves as entertainment services. Unlike the networks, they need not carry news or current affairs. That's deregulation, and it's making heavy inroads into network audiences.
Already, cable is consolidating. 10 of the companies in cable now control more than half the cable systems in America. It'll come down to 10 or 12 by 1990 that will own all of them and control all of them. And in controlling them and having a monopoly and not having to be publicly accountable, they will, in fact, control what comes out over those. Because the cable system with 50 channels of service sounds like it provides a lot of diversity and a lot of different viewpoints. But in fact, each of those channels is like the tines of a rake. They meet at a handle, and it's the fellow who controls the handle who controls what comes out over those 50 channels. So it's not diversity, it's just the illusion of diversity.
These new channels are not free. They will only survive by attracting enough viewers willing to pay. The ones making most profits are significantly entertainment-based. HBO, feature films. Showtime, another film channel. MTV, pop music. CNN, 24-hour news. The Disney Channel. Nickelodeon, a children's channel. ESPN, a sports channel. CBN, a Christian channel. And, of course, Playboy.
One of the effects of deregulation is going to be that we're going to have to trust to the beneficence of large corporations to serve the best interests of democracy.
has competition like this affected the multi-billion-dollar networks that have run American television for 50 years?
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting.
I congratulate all of you.
These networks are traditionally strong on news, politics, and sport.
Specific to our nation's future and acting.
In these areas, they rival the best public service traditions of British broadcasting. But what is their future?
The best figure we have that by 1990, we'll have between 70 and 74% of the audience we had, say, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. But that our total listening will be larger. And right now, I think that figure's too conservative.
Well, I think it has inexorably changed the nature of network television, and we're in the midst of that change. You're talking about an environment where the three networks in the United States shared 95% of the audience in prime time. That's now down to just under 80%. In HBO households, it's between 50 and 60%.
So the networks will get smaller, the advertisers will pay more, and eventually there has to be a revolution. The advertiser has to say, the hell with you, I ain't paying this much. I can put together a lot of different other ways to get the same amount of audience cheaper. And that will be the end of the network system, as all network systems, as all mass systems end. They usually take from 20 to 30 years.
Even worse, the networks themselves are now under takeover threats from cable conglomerates. A recent example is ABC Television, bought out partly with cable money for a staggering $3.5 billion.
Ted Turner has always said that he wanted to own, control one of the American television networks.
Ted Turner, who runs the 24-hour news channel CNN, recently made a $4.5 billion bid for CBS, the glittering prize in American television.
Wall Street watchers are anxiously keeping an eye on the Dow Jones average following...
I believe it is inevitable that Ted will own one of the American networks, whether it's CBS or NBC.
Recent American administrations believe that deregulation will not only mean huge television profits, but could fuel the economy.
It's a mania in the United States to deregulate industry, get off of businesses back, let the economy thrive. And these new developments in the electronic media will revitalize will lead to the reindustrialization of America. We will then take the lead in the world in the information age. So everybody in government seemingly wants all this to happen without obstruction.
But there is another force, more powerful than cable, which could radically change television. The satellite. A single broadcast satellite can cover 1/3 of the globe. This means that one country is almost powerless to regulate another's satellite transmission. All you need to tune into the world is a receiver like the one Mark Gordon has here in New York.
From here to here, it's about 18 American satellites. From this area on, I cannot count the number of European and Asian satellites that's up there. This is Westar 4. As you're watching, this is the BBC. Roughly, I can get about 300 channels now, and probably 600 channels in a few years from now.
We're reaching out to you.
Sky Channel is one of the new satellite stations. It's owned by Rupert Murdoch, whose newspaper empire is spreading fast. Sky itself extends via satellite and cable from Finland to Tunisia and is trying hard to secure a foothold here in Britain. Sky, a London-based entertainment channel, targets the whole family. It was launched in 1982 and now has 3 million subscribers throughout Europe, especially Holland. It operates from a tiny studio in London, where they package 4 hours of pop music daily. These free pop videos, linked by a VJ, keep production costs down to about £2,000 an hour.
And I do like the pictures there once again, especially one at the top to all the boys. I do trust that's from the girl. Keep it here for the sharp surprise recap.
We offer a complete evening's entertainment. It includes a lot of pop music, but that's because we feel that the younger audience is not being catered for enough at the beginning of the evening.
Situation comedy with a
Less hampered by the regulatory standards of national broadcast channels, Murdoch competes for audiences with a familiar mix of pop music, sport, and dated American reruns.
including comedy greats like The Lucy Show. The unforgettable antics of Candid Camera. And of course, classics like that now famous Talking Horse.
I think in Europe we are having the effect of encouraging national broadcasters to sometimes rethink the amount of entertainment they're putting into their channels at the present time.
Rupert Murdoch's newspapers issue editorials calling for the breaking up of the BBC. Now, they present it in the context of, in terms of, this will be good for public broadcasting. I mean, I think there is a mighty collision occurring now. We see it with the enormous efforts of people such as Rupert Murdoch to develop satellite systems and Robert Maxwell to develop cable systems.
Do you think this is a good thing, that television should become more entertainment-oriented?
Yes, I think it's a profoundly good thing. It's an expensive piece of equipment, it's costly to maintain, and the public is paying a lot of money for it, either through license fees or through the additional money it pays in supermarkets for goods for television in this country. And I think, as a result, the public should have a clear say in the kind of product they're getting back for their payment. And the public, as every commercial broadcaster will tell you, is a very astute body of people. We say they're astute enough to choose government. They certainly should be astute enough to choose their own TV programs.
The evidence is indeed that people like programs such as Blankety Blank and Game for a Laugh, which perhaps the intellectual elite within our society think are not very good programs. It seems to me there's nothing wrong in providing programs like that. The problem for the future is in all the other kinds of programs which need to be made if one is to have a healthy culture. And the difficulty is that the argument which is always trotted out is, well, why should we tell people what they want? People know what they want. In fact, people do not know what they want. What is interesting is that when you offer good television, however one defines good television, whether it's a very high-class, high-quality drama like During the Crown, or whether it's an extremely well-crafted program such as Coronation Street, or whether it's a brilliant current affairs program such as Weekend World, the point is that people do respond well to it, actually. The argument that somehow they want movies or they want rather glossy American material is not true.
Holland is currently Sky Channel's most lucrative market. Using the well-established cable network, Murdoch has so far penetrated 1.8 million homes out of a possible 3 million. Because Dutch television is so fragmented, it is also proving easy to poach viewers from the national networks. And it shows.
Greatest American hero also.
Greenacres, mooiste wat er is. Charlie's Angels en die Brady Bunch en zo, die...
Brady Bunch. Brady Bunch. Ja, en dan Greenacres.
Dat All in Wrestling, dat vind ik een idiote show.
Once a week, Sky quit London and travel to Holland to record a local pop program.
What are you celebrating? What are you actually studying? Huh?
I don't understand.
You don't understand? Ah, do you understand? Come over here. What are you studying at college? SMS. What is that?
Our duty, being a public broadcaster, is especially in view of the new possibilities to preserve and to defend our own culture. The problem with channels like Sky Channel is, of course, a sort of an undermining of our own position in that respect. And this applies not only for the Netherlands, it applies for all European public broadcasters.
Because there is so little commercial television in Europe, unlike Britain or America, some £3 billion of spare advertising money is just lying around. It's that money which entrepreneurs like Rupert Murdoch want to tap.
We've been trying to develop a pan-European advertising market. We haven't gone to national advertisers and said to them, use Sky. We've gone to international advertisers, the major international corporations, and said to them, look, here is the first chance you've got to get to the whole of Europe in one fell swoop on television. It is quite impossible to do that at the present time.
Satellite channels like Sky could give powerful multinational companies a chance to reach large pan-European audiences. This could have a profound effect on national broadcasting services, as market researchers have been quick to recognize.
As non-national broadcasting develops, and as the satellites develop, so those channels will be advertising funded. And therefore, the national or BBC-type channels in countries will be less able to control the television that their people see. And the whole economics of television start to change. And that broadcasting will, by definition, upset the monopoly that states currently have on the control and the form of broadcasting that takes place.
Rupert Murdoch's European aspirations are small beer beside those of a group of American entrepreneurs working out of Luxembourg. Their satellite, called Coronet, could carry 16 TV channels into every European country.
In Europe, you have to get, in essence, government approvals for anything that you do for television. And when something like the satellite comes along, which essentially makes meaningless the national control over transmission, because now we're talking about a satellite that would cover all of Europe, and no one country can control what's going on that satellite, what's being received. It becomes much more like radio or shortwave radio.
Faced with a declining steel industry, Luxembourg decided to exploit Coronet and tap for herself all that advertising money just there for the taking.
The European market as a whole, looked at in terms of the economy, the population, the gross national product, is larger, much larger than the United States market. And even when you make allowances for the cultural and language differences, there still is a huge market here for television, but it has never been allowed to really come into fruition.
With Coronet on stream, satellite material from America, like these entertainment channels, could swamp Europe.
The total market in Europe for, let's call it new television, could be, say, in the range of £2 to £5 billion per year. One satellite that is carrying something like 15 to 20 television programs, reaching the entire European market, could, let's say, get a third to half of that, or £1 to £2 billion per year, is roughly the size of the market that Coronet or the Luxembourg satellite might be able to garner.
The Coronet project has attracted fierce criticism. The French dubbed it the Coca-Cola satellite, anticipating a flood of American programming. They don't like the idea of all that money leaving Europe, and that's why the project has yet to get off the ground.
The producer covers his basic costs on an American network television and then makes his ultimate profit in the European market. So that when the programs are brought to Europe, the revenues are all gravy. Now, another way of looking at that is that the American programmer has already recouped all his costs, and anything he can make in the European market is pure profit. So in a sense, the Americans are dumping their television programs in Europe because anything they can make is profitable.
The French see all this as a distinct threat to their culture, so their government chose to defend public service broadcasting on several fronts, one of which involved a massive investment in new technology. This is Ariane, destined soon to put Europe's first direct broadcast satellite into space. This could give France a government-subsidized public service channel to combat American commercialism. The new service is called TV5, made up of programs culled from 5 French, Belgian, and Swiss public service networks. With 2 million cable viewers already, the French satellite could give TV5 a large European audience, beating the Americans at their own game. In Biarritz, viewers get 15 channels, courtesy of the world's most advanced fiber optic cable system. It's all part of the French government's determination to be at the forefront of a communications revolution, with money, jobs, and prestige at stake. The experiment in Biarritz involves replacing an old telephone system with fiber optics. These can accommodate 15 TV channels, an interactive communications network, and, if you can face it, a video phone.
C'est très très bon. Bon, oui, 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 très bien. Alors regardez, vous devez faire 2 mailles en vert.
2 mailles en vert, oui.
Voyez? Oui. Et vous répétez cela 4 fois.
Oui, j'ai fait un échantillon, oui, et j'ai tricoté, mais je crois que j'ai oublié un surgé.
3 fois.
3 fois.
4 fois.
Un endroit, 2 envers.
Ah, pour votre point.
Oui.
Une maille poussière.
D'accord.
2 mailles envers.
2 mailles envers.
Opération 4 fois.
What lets Monique Grattasol meet her customers face-to-face is a massive switching system that owes its very existence to the days when the French telephone was a bad joke. Recent French governments have been keen to replace old, inefficient networks with the very latest technology. All this makes facing your bank manager a distinctly new experience.
Can you tell me which kind of services this place offers, please?
Yes, you have two kind of services. The first is the video disc, which offers every details about the account offered by the BNP, and then the
Visiophone, where you can take appointment with a person of the BNP. Are people using it often?
Yes, they start to use this Visiophone, and I've got phone calls from the people who have a Visiophone at their home.
So far, this experiment has cost the French taxpayer the equivalent of £60 million. But that does not include research and development costs. What Biarritz shows is that the information age will not come cheap. In Biarritz, the 15 available channels provide quality programs taken from 5 European public service networks. Has France found the answer to the threat posed by deregulated satellite channels? This is Britain in the year 2000. Each home now has its own dish and can receive at least 20 satellite channels. There are TV sets in every room. We are about to enter a deregulated world of limitless entertainment.
Now, the problem with the future is that the BBC and the ITV, because they have to try and hold on to the audience which is available and which the cable and satellite companies are trying to take away from them, they will have to say, I'm sorry, we can no longer do the one-off drama, we can no longer do the innovatory comedy, we can no longer put money into minority programming, we have to put money into movies, into light entertainment programs, and so on. Their position within the total structure, the total ecology of British broadcasting will be slowly eroded, and they will have played a part in that.
Gran.
If the future is one in which the provision of television programmes is on the basis of market forces rather than public service values, the future is actually rather bleak.
From the satellite, this is the Murdoch News. Good morning. Queen Diana is 38 today. Later, a sneak preview of the surprises prepared for her by the royal family. Schoolboy Mark Graham has been found in America, and that's thanks to some behind-the-scenes work.
The real problem is not one of somehow the BBC and the ITV being abolished. The problem is one of slow erosion.
Our tricky yacht sets out this morning to cross the Di, stop it! Stop! More of that too, but first, today's bingo numbers.
Do we have a society where there is a public culture, or do we have a society where there is a privatised culture? And it was smack on. If one has satellite systems, if one has more and more work done from home, if one has more cable systems, if one has that kind of element, the individual is, as it were, forced back into the home. At one level, that is very good. At another level, it's alienating, because what it does potentially is divorce them from any kind of human contact. It destroys that sense of public culture. Shit.
More coffee?
Ah, yes. Sorry.
Your loving personality will penetrate hard.
Why? With 20 channels to choose from,
you will work
must you watch him every morning?
And in the whole of the cosmos, no one is more popular than you.
We're back now in the present. British broadcasting, held to be the best in the world, could be under threat. One challenge facing it is cable, launched here in 1982.
Now, I hope that when our detailed proposals are available next spring in a white paper, cable development will proceed as speedily as possible. Again, it will create many thousands of new jobs. Jobs in making cable, jobs in laying it, in producing equipment for the studio and in the home, and in making programs. So we're giving the green light to the cabling of Britain. We believe that the best traditions of our existing broadcasting services can be maintained. Exactly the same standards of public taste and decency can be applied to cable as applied to BBC and ITV.
In 1982, companies like Thorn EMI and later Robert Maxwell moved into cable. To attract private sector investment, it soon became clear that cable must be deregulated. The government agreed, confident that this would create more jobs. This is Swindon Cable, part of the Thorn EMI conglomerate and launched in September 1984 on a wave of publicity. It provides a familiar mix of pop music, films and light entertainment, which subscribers find more popular than BBC One. However, out of the original 11 franchises offered in 1982, Swindon Cable is as yet the only one fully operational.
For £5.95, you receive the standard service, which includes Screen Sport, Music Box, Sky Channel, Children's Channel, our own local programming, and a full range of out-of-area, off-air broadcasts. For a further £7.95, you receive Premiere, the film channel, which offers up to 40 films each month, 18 of which may be new to the service.
It costs £200 to cable up a house. Although Swindon Cable are getting 100 new subscribers each month, it will take 3 to 4 years to break even. Government broadcasting policy is based on classical monetarist principles. Without private sector investment, experiments like Swindon are unlikely to survive. Not only has the project not generated new jobs, but in 1984, the government withdrew capital allowances. In an effort to improve revenue, Swindon Cable recently cut their prices.
Hello there,
Hello.
Mrs. Rivers.
Yes.
Dave Richards, Swindon Cable.
Hello.
There again. Nice to see you.
In Swindon, there are 3,500 homes able to plug into the new cable network. But despite determined marketing, so far only 350 families have chosen to subscribe. That's only 10% penetration.
Right.
At this rate, Swindon Cable may not survive. For the government, cable meant more jobs and high technology. But this has very little to do with TV standards or indeed programs.
For the person in the home, what matters is the picture and the program that they're watching. What matters is what's on their television, not how it gets there. It could get there on a piece of wet string as far as they're concerned.
If the best tradition of our existing broadcasting services, to quote Margaret Thatcher, are worth preserving, then few now look to cable to do it. Deregulation has meant a drop in standards. Even the government now accepts that.
With new outlets being provided, particularly the cable one with its multiplicity of channels, that cannot be expected to be public service broadcasting in the same sense. There has to be requirements on taste and decency, certainly, because of the nature of the medium and its intrusiveness, but there doesn't have to be the general public service standards.
This Conservative government gave up, really, the battle to regulate cable, and you can regulate cable if you want to, but it gave it up because the market for cable was so tiny that the people who were looking for the franchises felt they could only gain it if the restrictions which are imposed on commercial television did not apply in the same way to them.
Having virtually abandoned cable, the government have now gone for a second option, satellite TV. Here at British Aerospace, they are developing a new generation of satellites. These will not only create more jobs, but keep Britain in the satellite business. This new TV service will be delivered by direct broadcast satellite, neatly eliminating the need for cable networks, of which there are few in Britain. The signal goes directly into the home via a special receiver dish and will cost £20 a month.
I think that if there is a technical possibility to do it, which there is, and if it's going to happen elsewhere, it would be quite ludicrous to say that it oughtn't to happen in this country. Now, we are not financing it. We are providing an opportunity for it to happen. We're facilitating it. I think it would be a good thing if it does happen, and I think that is the right attitude of government to take.
Unwilling to finance it themselves, the government have offered the contract to a consortium made up of the BBC and 15 of the BBC's traditional rivals, the ITV companies, and a few independents. The government insists that a British satellite is used, so Unisat has been formed. This is made up of British Aerospace, GEC Marconi, and British Telecom. The cost of 2 satellites, 1 spare and 1 transmitting, is £463 million.
That may require the government to take a slightly different attitude than it does at the moment about assisting with it. Elsewhere in Europe, with their DBS services, there has been some financial assistance available to people starting.
The consortium now say this satellite is too expensive. They would prefer BritSat, which uses American RCA technology. BritSat's 2 satellites would cost £338 million.
As for government assistance, I don't believe that that is appropriate. I think that there are many calls on the taxpayer, and there are many things that we should be doing. I don't think this is one of them. I think that it is something that ought to be financed independently if it's to happen at all, because you cannot regard this, however desirable it is, as a necessity of life of a kind that government and government alone should directly finance out of the taxpayer's money.
So if the private sector decide that they won't go ahead with this, the project will die?
Yes.
The project itself is very expensive, but both figures so far quoted do not include program costs. The consortium's next task is to devise a service sufficiently attractive to persuade viewers to pay. So, what will the customer get for his money?
The only thing that's very sure at the moment is a movie channel. I think people talk a little glibly about the attractions of movies. Most people in the feature film industry know they're lucky if they get 12 box office successes a year. The appetite of a all-movie channel on DBS or anywhere else is a lot greater than that, probably for up to 150 films a year. So the chances are you'll get a lot of very bad films. And I have my doubts myself about whether in the long term that will be satisfactory. So there'll have to be other forms of entertainment. And you may start with a movie channel, but I would see the likelihood of the 1990 equivalent of Dallas being up there with the movies as well. Beyond that, it's a box office in the skies.
Why will it be entertainment-based? Because this is a pay service. And for a pay service, which isn't anything to do with public service broadcasting, you have to sell the public what they wish to buy. And all the market research has indicated that what the public would wish to buy would be an entertainment-led service, and basically a feature film entertainment-led service. It's a very high-risk venture.
There'll be an increase in the volume of entertainment that is coming down from the skies, but it could be a Star Wars battle of circulation implications rather than ballistic missiles. And in those circumstances, I don't hold out much hope for the quality of
Good television costs money. BBC programmes cost, on average, £37,000 an hour. The BBC's tradition of public service broadcasting could suffer if precious money is diverted to feed the satellite. ITV, who developed their public standards in competition with the BBC, spend £57,000 an hour. ITV's terrestrial services could also suffer if programme money is given to the proposed satellite service.
Because of increased competition for the audience from cable systems, from satellite systems, the BBC and the ITV companies will be forced to, as it were, conspire with their own demise. That will happen because they will be forced to reduce the amount of money they spend on marginal programs, on minority programming, on difficult programming, on one-off dramas and so on. And they will have to spend more money on peak time programs, on popular programs, on mass taste programs.
there's the possibility that there will be so many different types and forms of entertainment coming through that public service broadcasting as it's presently seen would lose its major audience share. And unless there is a major audience share, then I don't believe you can continue with public service broadcasting.
We've got to be astute enough not to deprive the existing audience of those services, to expand upon them, to make the satellite service attractive. Now, we believe we can put forward ideas that will do that, but our peers in this matter, the BBC Board of Governors, in our case the IBA, have to be satisfied that in so doing we don't damage our obligations to our terrestrial franchise.
The BBC currently faces a cash crisis. The satellite could, if it ever took off, pay for their terrestrial service. But the risks are high. Another way might be to take advertising, and it's that alternative which the government want the Peacock Committee to consider.
Well, the first thing we've got to do is to resist the pressures to put advertising on the BBC and make the BBC subject to the commercial pressures which would force it to go for programs of the lowest common factor in order to get the commercials. Now, that, of course, would have a terrible effect upon the commercial broadcasting organizations as well.
I think the BBC will probably, sometime in the future, take advertising. It becomes more and more difficult to justify a license fee when the share of viewing taken by that one or two channels becomes smaller and smaller. I mean, why should people in cable homes, when the bulk of their viewing is not to BBC, be forced to pay £58 a year in addition to what they're paying for cable, solely for the privilege of having on their sets channels they don't choose to watch?
Whatever happens, it is essential for British broadcasting to face the satellite challenge. What's more, to stimulate new technology, the government could instead legalize medium-sized receivers. That would mean private houses could pick up any old satellite and open the way for a mass of unregulated material.
Let's take a look at it again, Kurt. He gets down at the shoulder, pushes down on that left horn, up on the right horn, brings the steer around.
As far as low-powered satellites are concerned, there is probably going to be little form of regulation, and I'm very concerned that low-powered satellites, very inexpensive, can be acquired by undesirable elements and can be broadcasting signals throughout the world, carrying all sorts of propaganda, coupled with very fine entertainment programs that could be poached. So I think low-powered satellites are a very serious problem for the future of broadcasting in the world.
One of the possible developments would be for states who have a message they wish to get across, Libya immediately springs to mind, to develop their own satellite services. Now, one reaction would be, well, who would want to watch Libyan television? Because it's not the world's most appealing television. But I mean, with the skillful programming and so on, one could imagine services being developed.
Any TV company, any political or religious group, any multinational drinks company could rent a channel for as little as £1 million a year and reach anyone in Britain. TV will then be totally unregulated. It will become like the unrestricted world of publishing.
We will get, I think, an enormous variety of things. It is simply a case of opening up. And there the analogy with book publishing does hold. I mean, plainly, you can sell a couple of million copies of pot boiling or not pot boiling, very successful, popular book. But on the other hand, learned works continue to be published. And that's after 500 years of printing. So I think that it statistically and numerically may be that there will be more of the less culturally advanced stuff.
But the future is already here. This is CNN, an Atlanta-based news service. It operates 24 hours a day. Because it's a satellite channel with global aspirations, it provides a glimpse of things to come. In America, CNN has 32 million subscribers. But Ted Turner will not rest until his news is received in every country of the world.
CNN, Ted Turner, wants to have his news organization the world over. He wants to be at the threshold of world and international information. And it's important for us to be in as many countries as possible. I think we're in 17 countries right now, and of course, Chile's in over 200 countries as we have them listed in the World Atlas.
The thing that the satellite has done is to make the national control over television origination technically no longer relevant and economically no longer relevant. So inevitably, it's going to happen. The only question is when and how.
Panda's keeper says he likes them so much he'd like to go to
Busy
China.
day.
Not really.
They are the cutest.
Do you mind if I,
No.
Panda bears, they're not really bears.
Рада увеличивать выпуск продукции.
As usual, we want you to press button 1 for Conservative, button 2 for Labour, button 3 for the Liberal.
We can no longer tolerate the sham democracies of the capitalist conspiracy. Speaking today at the opening of the final phase of the English Revolution, live President Field Marshal Gaddafi would like to point out that
Ibn al-Khalil into an early lead, closely followed by Pride of Kashmir and Sharif Beauty. But it's the young jockey Mohammed Bandar leading by a length.
Welcome then to the Indira Gandhi Stadium here in New Delhi. It's Liverpool against New Delhi, the 4th round, second leg tie in the Toyota Satellite Super League.
Well, that's the last drink I'm having in there for a bit. I can't keep paying £7.50 for a vodka and tonic.
No, it's that extra pound that they put on spirits at the last budget.
Well, I blame Michael Heseltine. He's no right to make Ken Livingstone Chancellor of the Exchequer.
I mean, I went for my pension today. Well, how do they expect us to manage on only £264.30 a week? Wouldn't care, but they gave it me nearly all in them £5 coins. Was that heavy? I could hardly walk.
Oh, they do it on purpose. They're trying to kill us off. There's too many of us.
Oh, Tracy Barlow's turned into a lovely girl, hasn't she?
And bright with it. I mean, she was blinding them with science in there.
We're getting married next week.
Aye, time flies.
Producers would like to acknowledge the cooperation of the British Actors Equity Association and the American Screen Actors Guild in the making of this series.
Coming up next is the premiere of Prime Time, an innovative new series which takes you behind the scenes of a television production company. Following that, Nine's Wide World of Sports presents the cricket highlights from today's play in Launceston.